Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of C-SPAN. My name is Megan, and I'm joined with our biologist, Lindsey, and we have Chrissy down there, and we're going to do some very exciting Raptor training this morning. And we're actually in our coral reef tunnel. So while we're closed, Austin, our Harris's hawk, gets to enjoy some training in a new location.
All right, you ready? Cool. Awesome.
So Lindsey, tell us all about training Austin.
So Austin is a Harris's hawk, like we talked about. He is super intelligent. Harris's hawks are one of the smartest species of birds of prey, or raptors. So training him is actually really easy. It's basically as easy as training a dog. What we're doing with him is something called positive reinforcement. So every time he does something that we ask him to do, he gets a treat in the glove, which you may or may not see me offering here. But then if he doesn't do something right, we don't punish him. He just doesn't get that reward in the glove, if that makes sense. He's very excited about flying. So flying Austin is super important. It keeps him super in shape, which is important for raptors. But it also enriches him, which means it keeps his mind thinking. We like to fly him in different areas of the aquarium. It gets him thinking, ooh, this is a new spot, and it's kind of a challenge for him. We've flown a couple times here in this tunnel with him, and he seems to do really well with it. But yeah, he really enjoys flying. Sometimes we fly outside. Sometimes we even fly in the lobby with guests present. And he definitely enjoys that. Sometimes it can be a little distracting to have guests around. But again, it's kind of enrichment for him because he gets to look around and see all the different kinds of people. So what he's flying in right now, so we've got this coral reef tunnel. He's flying glove to glove. And he's also attached to something we call a creance line. A creance line is basically a super long leash, if you can see it on the Facebook Live video. The super long leash enables us to make sure that if he were to get spooked by something or decide that he didn't want to land on our glove, that he's not going to be flying around the lobby for the rest of the day. We want to make sure that he is safe and secure, and that he's not going to hurt himself on anything here in the aquarium. He's such a good boy. He is a great flyer. He is our best flyer here at the Florida Aquarium. We have several different species of raptors here. To be specific, we actually have 5 different raptors here at the Florida Aquarium. He is one of them. He is a good flyer. Do you want to go get that piece on the ground? He's like, nope. Chrissy, if you want to call him, you can. He didn't see the piece. What a good boy.
So Lindsey, how long have you been working with Austin?
I started working here at the Florida Aquarium just about a year ago. So I've actually been working with Austin since basically my first day here. I've been working with raptors for quite a long time, probably about 7 years now, but specifically Austin for about a year. He is 20 years old, so he's actually had quite a few trainers, but they've actually done a really great job with him up until this point. How many pieces do you have left?
3.
This might be my last one. We'll see. Oh, it's not. I have a little tiny piece left.
So talk about what you're feeding Austin and offering to him as a reward for doing great flying.
Yeah, so Austin gets almost exactly what he would get in the wild. So raptors in the wild are eating things, they're very opportunistic, so they're eating things that they can catch. In the wild, Austin would be eating things like snakes, reptiles, lizards, all that stuff. We can end on that one, Chrissy. And you can just come feed him those pieces. Yummy. So he's actually, in the wild, going to be eating things that he can catch, like reptiles, rabbits, bunnies, rats, basically anything that he can get his little talons on. So here at the Florida Aquarium, we like to kind of, copy that. So what we're going to do is we're going to feed him things that he would naturally eat. So he eats a mixed diet of birds, rodents, quail, rabbits sometimes. But yeah, we like to give him as many things as possible to keep it varied. So today he ate a medium rat, and it was just cut up into little tiny bite-sized pieces to make sure that we could train him efficiently.
That's awesome. And we had a question, how do you tell if Austin is a boy or a girl?
Ooh, that's a very good question. So most raptors are not what we call sexually dimorphic. That means when you look at most raptors, you just can't look at them and say, oh, obviously that's a girl or obviously that's a boy. Harris's hawks, you can't just look at them. So what we did was we actually took a DNA test of Austin when he came here to the Florida Aquarium. That told us he was a boy, but also in raptors, most species, the males are actually quite a bit smaller than the females. So Austin here only weighs about 650 grams. Most female Harris's hawks will weigh about 900 grams. So that's almost a whole pound heavier than Austin here. So the females are quite a bit larger than him, so I think we would have been able to tell he was a boy just based off of his weight.
And we have another question. So somebody asked, how can you tell if they're tired?
Oh, that's a really good question. So if Austin was tired, there's a few different ways. So if he was like physically exhausted from flying, he would be panting, his wings would be real droopy, just like us. Like if you take a really long run, all you want to do is lay on the couch and go for a while. He will pant just like we do and just like dogs to make sure he gets, he cools off. But if he was like sleepy tired, he would probably tuck his little foot up, be very comfortable, very fluffy, and he'd probably start closing his eyes, like sleeping. But he's definitely not tired or physically exhausted. He's definitely very alert and very excited by the flying.
Nicole wants to know, how can you tell when they're full?
Ooh, that's also a really good question, Nicole. Thank you. So for birds of prey specifically, they have something called a crop. That is a digestive organ that sits right here on Austin's chest. Right now you can't really see it because he's actually not full. He ate a normal-sized meal instead of like a huge dinner-sized meal. If he were to eat a huge, like gorge dinner-sized meal, his crop would be like huge. And then he also wouldn't be eating. He would say, no, I don't want that piece of food anymore. I am actually very full.
And Rob wants to know, what is his favorite food?
Ooh, Austin's favorite food, I would have to say, is like a full rat. We do gorge days once a week for him. That means he gets basically as much as he could physically possibly eat, which, if we did that every day, would not be healthy. He would be obese, just like you and me. But we do that once a week for him, and that allows him to just get really full and satiated and just, be very happy that day. So what we'll do is we'll give him a whole rat, and he'll eat that whole thing, and his crop will be ginormous.
So Casey wants to know, where do these raptors typically live in the wild?
Oh, cool. So Harris's hawks are a primarily desert or tropical bird. They live in the United States. They live in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Of course, they will accidentally get lost sometimes and make their way up into like Colorado, Nevada, things like that. But they also range really far south. So they go all the way through Mexico, Central America, and all the way into South America and Peru.
So we have a question, a couple of questions about how do we tell Austin's mood, if he's in a good mood, happy, sad, that kind of thing.
So raptors are pretty good at expressing themselves and how they're feeling, but it's kind of up to us as biologists to read what they're expressing. A lot of times when you look at raptors, they look real angry because they've got something called a supraorbital ridge. That supraorbital ridge on Austin protects his eyes from the sunshine. Make sure he doesn't get blinded when he's up there flying really high. But a lot of people will take that and say, well, Austin is really angry all the time because, he looks like he's got those furrowed eyebrows. But that's simply not true. So if Austin were to be angry right now, he would be really puffy. These feathers right here would be all stuck up, and his tail would be really big. And he would try to make himself as big as possible because he's wanting to show, like, I'm angry, don't mess with me. If he's content, he looks pretty much like he does right now. His feathers are all slicked back. He's just kind of looking around and alert. If he were to be ill or sick or something, you'd kind of see a behavior shift. He would, he'd maybe be a little bit droopy, or his eyes wouldn't be as alert and bright as they are right now. And he might not have the same color in his feet or his cere. He might be a little bit paler.
So Kate wants to know, do they eat fish?
Do they eat fish? Well, Harris's hawks live mostly in the desert, so they don't have access to fish as frequently as other birds. But I think if I were to offer Austin a fish, which we have actually done before for enrichment, he would absolutely eat it. These guys are hyper opportunistic, which means if they see something that they think they can eat, they are going to try.
Sarah wants to know, what are the predators to raptors?
So a lot of raptors do not have natural predators. Things like large golden eagles or bald eagles and stuff like that. They can evade most of those predators by just taking flight. Things like Austin, which are smaller raptor species, will actually be predated on by other raptors. So let's say Austin was in the desert, he had just caught a big jackrabbit and was so excited to have that meal. What he'll actually do is cover it up with his wings, something called mantling. He'll cover up that meal so that other raptors might not be able to see it. But unfortunately, raptors know that that covering up behavior means they have food. So something like a very large golden eagle might actually come in and kill Austin, unfortunately, for his food that he has. And then now that golden eagle has two meals, the jackrabbit and Austin, unfortunately.
So Kavya wants to know, what is their lifespan?
Ooh, that's a good one. So Austin here, like I said, is 20 years old. He's very interested in the fish in the background. Austin here is 20 years old. In the wild, we would expect them to live anywhere between 5, 10, maybe 12 or 13 years old. Harris's hawks are really good at living for a really long time because they actually hunt in a family unit, whereas most raptors don't. So they can live a lot longer because they have the help of their family. In human care, I've heard of some Harris's hawks getting up into about 30, 31, 32. So we have a good bit of time left here with Austin.
So Tara wants to know, how large is their wingspan?
So Austin's wingspan, got a little poop. Austin's wingspan is about 3.5 feet. I've never sat there and measured his wings, but if he opens his wings, which he might do, you can see he's not a huge bird, but he's a very tiny, fast little flyer.
So what's the biggest bird you've ever worked with, Lindsey?
Oh boy. The biggest flighted bird I've ever worked with is an Andean condor. Her name was Dorothy at the World Bird Sanctuary. She was 21 pounds. So if you kind of know that Austin is about 1.5 pounds, she's about 21 pounds. She's very large. But the largest non-flighted bird I've ever worked with was an emu. His name is Lenny.
So let's take Austin on a little trip. Let's go around the corner and see if he can check out some of the fish.
Awesome.
Now, these videos have been super popular, animals visiting other animals throughout the aquarium. A couple weeks ago, we had our penguins come and waddle through the coral reef, but I think it's time for Austin to come and hang out with some of the fish. So this is the shallow side of our coral reef, and there's tons of species of fish in here. And do you think Austin likes to hang out with these guys?
Oh yeah, so I will often bring him up here either before we open or if there's no guests present. I'll bring him either here to the coral reef gallery or to the other side with our large window and our sand tiger sharks, and he loves to sit there and watch the fish. We could sit there for like an hour and he would just watch the fish, and he does his little head tilts, which means he's really interested in what's going on. It's very cute.
So what other kinds of birds do we have here at the aquarium? You mentioned that we have a collection of them here.
So here at the Florida Aquarium, we do have 5 different species of raptors. So Austin here is one of them. So we have a Harris's hawk, this guy. We also have a black vulture, which are common here in the southeastern United States. They're a fairly large species of bird with a 5-foot wingspan. We have one named Lurch. He's a very sweet boy. We also have a barred owl. Barred owls are really common here in the swamps and stuff in Florida, and you'll actually see them hunting crayfish and worms and snakes and stuff in the swamps, which is real cute. We also have, we have a crested caracara. His name is Tupelo, like after the Tupelo tree. Crested caracaras are found pretty much here in Florida, in central Florida. They're also found in Texas, Mexico, and South America. He is a super cool ambassador, and I can't wait to have him in front of guests. What else do we have? Oh, we have an American kestrel, which is the smallest species of falcon native to America. His name is Wally, like the little robot. Oh my goodness, he's so cute. And then lastly, we have, oh my goodness, who am I missing? Did I get everybody? Oh, that's everybody.
Awesome. Don wants to know, what is the noise that he's making?
Oh, so Austin actually was raised around humans, so he's super comfortable with us. He actually hears me vocalizing, and so he's like, well, we're all vocalizing here, so I guess I'm going to do it too. So it's just a little grunt that he'll make. It's not a negative or positive sound. It just means that he's here and present and making himself known.
Alyssa wants to know, when they get puffy, is that a response, or can they do it whenever they want?
So these guys actually have control over every single individual feather on their entire body. So you know how when we get goosebumps, our little hairs stand up? So those muscles that control that are called the erector pili muscles. These guys have control over their erector pili muscles. So if he were to say, oh, I'm angry, I don't like something that's going on, he can puff up certain feathers to communicate that. But sometimes, if he's comfortable, he'll actually puff out all of his feathers and shake them all out, and it'll actually get all the dust and nastiness out of the inside of his feather area, which is really important. So these guys can control all their feathers. If they want to puff up for no reason, they could puff up for no reason, but it's usually a response to some sort of stimulus.
Linda wants to know, what time does he sleep?
So Austin here is a diurnal bird, which means he actually sleeps at night, just like you and me, typically. So he'll sleep, sometimes I'll actually come in early in the morning here to the aquarium, and he's still got his sleepy face on. He's still got his foot tucked and his eyes closed, and he's like really grumpy, doesn't want to be messed with. But yeah, he'll wake up just like we do during the day, and then he'll go back to sleep once the sun sets.
Mike wants to know, how would he woo a lady raptor?
Oh boy, this is my favorite subject. So Austin here, if he were to woo a lady raptor, he would actually build her a really fancy nest. These guys will actually nest, of course, in the desert, so on cactuses and yucca plants and things like that. So he'll actually build her a real fancy nest, and he will also bring her food. So he will go kill something out in the desert and bring it back to her. And another thing that's my favorite thing in the whole world is it's something I call his fluffy pants. So we were talking about their feathers. What he'll do is he'll fluff out these white feathers on his underside, and that signals to her that he is ready to have eggs and a nest and a family. And she'll either read that signal and say, ooh, I like Austin, he's brought me food, made me a nest, or she'll say, I don't like Austin so much. So he'll communicate it with those under fluffy feathers, but also by bringing her things, and it's very cute.
So Phoenix wants to know, what do their eggs look like?
So their eggs are not huge, because these are not a huge bird. They're about this big, almost similar to a chicken egg, and they are white. They pretty much just look like a chicken egg for this species. But of course, bird eggs do vary pretty wildly. The hummingbirds, of course, are going to be only this big, and then all the way up to, of course, the ostrich eggs, which are this big.
Wagner wants to know, are they endangered in the wild?
Nope. So Harris's hawks are actually doing really well. They kind of accredit that to the fact that they will hunt in packs. So these guys will hunt together as family units for years and years and years. The juveniles do not leave the nest like typical birds of prey. They will actually stick around with that family unit for probably the rest of their life. So these guys are doing very well. They have little limited populations that are declining, and they think that's due to habitat loss and loss of food that they can find. But for the most part, they're doing very well.
So Rachel wants to know, do they have a sense of time?
So I want to say that birds and most animals have some sort of circadian rhythm. Some circadian rhythms, follow the sun patterns and stuff like that, and some circadian rhythms follow other patterns that we find in nature. These guys typically follow the sun patterns, so they actually know when the days start getting longer and stuff like that it's time to start breeding and getting their little fluffy pants on. And they know when the days start getting shorter that it's going to be winter time and they really need to bulk up. So they do have a sense of time. And of course they go to sleep when it's dark and they wake up when it's light outside.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Lindsey, so much for showing us Austin's training this morning. If you guys want to join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. for another episode of C-SPAN, we'll be live with Shayna, and she'll be showing us our wetlands and doing a red drum feeding. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks to our C-SPAN sponsor, CIBC. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.